In a recent video, I built a whole bunch of items from the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time in LEGO to go with my new Deku Tree set. And since that set came out, I've been in full Zelda mode, and I can't stop thinking about all the different things that LEGO could make for a Zelda theme. I already made all those items for Ocarina of Time, so now it seems fitting that today I'm going to be building dozens of different weapons, shields, equipment, and materials from the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. To start us off, I'm going to show you one of the more difficult builds that I created. This is the Paraglider. You can see I built it with a lot of different brown elements like hot dogs, bars, Technic beams, and even these minifigure accessory holders on the end for Link to grab onto. I even used an actual cloth minifigure cape too for the top sail of the Paraglider, even if it wasn't a completely legal connection. I started by very carefully drilling a hole in the bottom of the cape, so that then it could have a stud connection to keep the cape in place on the bottom. And once you actually connect it to Link, I think it looks pretty good. It's mostly made up of a lot of different standard pieces that are pretty easy to find, so it's nice and simple to make. And it helps that you can find that dark red cape in the newest collectible minifigure series of D&D. And if you want to do it in a more legal way without using a minifigure cloth cape, you could also use this old sail piece from sets that came out years ago. It has that same kind of glider shape to it, and it has a clip on it that you could connect it easily. It's really simple to make a tree branch and a torch from the game. By using a brown bar with some brown minifigure hands and a leaf on top, you can make the tree branch. And by putting a couple studs on top of a different brown bar, you can make a torch really easily. You can also make the soup ladle weapon with a ceramic pot piece, a brown hilt, and a brown bar as well. I also had a lot of fun making the spring-loaded hammer. This one is comprised of a lot of different 1x1 studs, 2x2 plates and tiles, a blue lightsaber hilt, and a couple other bar pieces. I also added this 1x1 skeleton printed tile just to add some extra detail and make it look just like the one from the game. These next two swords represent the Traveler's Sword and the Soldier's Broadsword respectively. The sword on the right actually comes in the Deku Tree set, but I think both of these swords portray the size and shape of those swords in the game pretty well. You can use this silver and gold sword from older knight sets to portray the Royal Broadsword. In the game, the sword is a mix of silver and gold, but I feel like the gold sword is the one that looks better. I think it portrays that Royal Broadsword just a little bit more accurately than the silver one. I feel like this next one is kind of a long shot because this is pretty clearly a Minecraft sword, but I feel like it kind of resembles the Forest Dweller's sword. It's not nearly as good as some of the other swords that you're going to see in this video, but I think it's pretty close. These next few swords probably have some of the most options that you can choose from. When it comes to Gerudo weapons, you can use either this Prince of Persia dagger here, or this gold lightsaber blade with a tooth in it to be the Moonlight Scimitar and the Gerudo Scimitar. And this Cutlass sword from this Pirates of the Caribbean minifigure works pretty good for the Scimitar of the Seven. And beyond those, LEGO has made several other scimitar-like swords that work perfectly as well. And they come in plenty of different shapes and colors, so it's really up to you which ones you want to choose. A simple katana piece works great for the 8-fold blade, and it's perfect too because the Yiga clan are essentially ninjas anyway. Either this black sword or this dark gray sword work really well for the Royal Guard's sword. This one's a little bit more detailed, but this one gets the shape a little bit closer, so it's up to you which one you want to use. I did a lot of research on how to make the flame blade perfectly, and there isn't really a good option to make it look like the one from the game, but I feel like this flame orange katana piece, or this sword over here, work pretty well to represent the flame blade, but there isn't one that looks exactly like the one from the game. And as far as the Frost Blade and Thunder Blade are concerned, even though these ones are a little big, I feel like these pieces that I used are pretty much perfect to get the shape right. Since the Thunder Blade has that forked appearance, I think this piece works really well for it. And then using this blue crystal and this ice-colored piece for the Frost Blade also works pretty well, I think. There are also some really good options to make different Guardian swords. This sword from the new Dream sets works really well, especially when you put a translucent orange 1x1 tile on the front. Otherwise, you could do the simple technique of a gold hilt and this translucent blue blade. Either way, I think they work really well for a Guardian weapon. I also came up with some cool ways to make the Meteor Rod, the Thunderstorm Rod, and the Blizzard Rod. They're all going to use chrome lightsaber hilts and then some different colored elemental pieces. I think the way I did the Blizzard Rod here is my favorite though. I really like the giant snowflake piece that I used, but I think all three of them work really well to portray those items from Breath of the Wild. Now on to some two-handed weapons. By using a green bar and a snot brick, I was able to connect that leaf piece to make a Korok frond. And then I was able to use this long brown bar, this cone, and a wolverine claw to make a hoe. A farming hoe, that is. Then of course I have a simple boat oar and a woodcutting axe. I used a white lightsaber hilt, a shorter brown bar, and then that axe piece to make it. To make the double axe, I used a piece from the new D&D collectible minifigures. However, there's also a piece from two video sets that actually work really well for the double axe. I wasn't able to get my hands on it though, because it's actually kind of expensive. but that piece works really well also. For the iron sledgehammer, I used two 1x3 bricks, covered it with a tile, and then connected it to the pole. And then I put some studs on it throughout to give it some extra detail, along with that red lightsaber hilt for the handle. By using a rounded 1x2 yellow plate, a couple studs with bars on them, and these fang pieces, I was able to make a giant boomerang. These fang pieces really came in handy, because I feel like it really gives the shape of that giant boomerang. This is another one of my favorite ones that I did here, the silver longsword. By using this sickle piece, a 1x1 clip, a couple light blue studs here, on top of a chrome lightsaber hilt, I think it gives the appearance of that longsword pretty well. The shape of the sickle definitely helps, since that longsword has a pretty unique shape on the blade. It's also really easy to make an ancient blade saw as well. Little did I know that these saw pieces come in translucent blue, but once I did the research on all these different colors of pieces, it was nice to find that one. By using a gold hilt and some translucent orange pieces, it works really well to give that guardian feel to the weapon. And the same thing goes for the ancient battle axe as well. By connecting a translucent blue axe piece to a lightsaber piece and then on that gold hilt with some orange just like before, it makes for a really good ancient battle axe. These next two are among my favorites as well. By using this big club that the trolls use in some of the old Knights sets with a chain and a brown hilt here, you can make the Lionel Crusher. At first I was just going to use this club, but then I realized that a chain piece and a brown lightsaber hilt would go with it pretty well to give that effect of the Lionel Crusher. I just hope Link can actually swing this because it's so big. And next is a Moblin arm. I used this big bone piece, connected it with some clips and some other skeleton arms, and then I kind of did this illegal connection here on the top with another arm, but hey, it works, so why not? It definitely gives the look of a Moblin claw that wants to grab you. And now for some spears. And technically the game counts pitchforks and mops as spears, so I added those in. This spear by itself could represent the Traveler's Spear, but if you want to upgrade it a little bit, you can just add one piece and turn it into the Soldier's Spear. By adding this 1x1 clip with a gray banana on it, you can turn it into the Soldier's Spear. Who would have thought that a banana would make for a good weapon? I thought this was Zelda, not Mario Kart. LEGO has also made a bunch of different halberds in the past too, so you don't really need to make any of those out of bricks. And they come in different colors too, so you could have different variations of those halberds and spears too. You could have anything from the Knight's halberd, the Royal halberd, or even the Royal Guard's spear with those different pieces. The Serpentine spear was actually pretty cool to make as well. Similar to what I did with that banana on the Soldier's Spear, I did it with this Moon Knight blade on the top of the spear. Then I added some dark red studs throughout just to give it some extra detail. Next I made this pretty admittedly convoluted version of a Guardian spear. I wish I could have made this area a little bit less cluttered and more simple, but it's kind of the only way I could get all three blades on it. And if you want to recreate any of the tridents in the game, LEGO has made them for a while. By using a candelabra piece and some unicorn horns, I think mine's a little bit more imposing than the smaller one that LEGO makes. But either way, there's plenty of options to make tridents. Now let's talk about bows. There's not as many options for bows in LEGO as there is for all these different swords and spears that I've made, but there's still a few that are worth noting. There's also a quiver piece that you can put on the back of Link as well, just to give it some more detail. There's plenty of brown bows in the game, so either of these ones will work great for that. There's also a black and a tan version of a recurve bow as well. There is also a pearled gold bow that exists, however it's a little pricey, but I know there's plenty of different gold bows in the game, so if you wanted to try and represent any of those, that would be the piece to get. There's also a few interesting arrow variations that you can make too. You can see I made an arrow here with a Keese eyeball on the front by using a red minifigure head and this eye piece from the Dreams sets. I also made an ancient arrow with this translucent blue spear tip and some translucent orange dots on the sides. Obviously the Hylian shield comes in the Deku set, but there's about a dozen or so different variants of shields that we can make pretty easily. It's also pretty easy to clip a shield to the back of your Link minifigure here by using a minifigure back bracket and a 1x1 clip. And if that wasn't cool enough already, you can also slide a sword in between the handle of the shield, and that way it looks like he's carrying all his gear on his back. Another shield that's included in the Deku set is the Traveler's Shield. This uses the same standard mold for most shields, but it has a nice printed front as well. I came up with two ways to do the pot lid shield. You can either use this 3x3 nougat circular tile or this 2x2 wooden printed tile. I like the detail on the wooden one, but I feel like the size is better on the nougat one. Let me know if you think one is better than the other in the comments. Next, I came up with two ways to make the emblazoned shield. Either you could use this shield that already has a deer print on it, but it doesn't really get the colors right, or the shape. Or you could use my other idea that starts with this simple shield with a stud on the front. Then take a 2x2 round jumper plate along with a yellow fang piece, and then it looks kind of like the shape and the colors of the emblazoned shield. At least a little bit better than this one. I also made this rudimentary version of a Traveler's Shield, and I think I get the colors pretty right here. And then I also used this light gray shield for the Knight's shield, although there is no red markings on the front like there would be in the game. There's also two ways that you could make the royal shield. Either this first way with a pearl dark gray shield and then this gold tile on front, or you could do it the other way, you just swap the colors. Either way, I think it's pretty accurate to the shield in the game, but I do prefer the one with the dark gray face. I think it matches the color of the game a little bit closer. Next, I made the silver shield. Obviously you can tell by the plate on the front that it's meant to be the silver shield, however I do wish the back of it had a different color. That shield is a little bit brighter silver and has some blue accents, but I think this one got the spikes right, which I like. By using a copper version of the shields that I was using earlier for some of the other ones, along with a gold 2x2 dish piece and then this red translucent dot on the front, I made the Gerudo shield. It's also really easy to pop off that gold piece and then replace it with a 2x2 purple jumper to then make the radiant shield. Both of them are really easy to make and look a lot like their video game counterparts. There's also this nice newer printed shield from the new Barad-dûr set with Lord of the Rings, and I think it looks a lot like the rusty shield from Breath of the Wild. It is a little pricey since it's in a bigger set, but I had to get my hands on this one because it looks just like the one from the game. Next, this reinforced Lizzle shield is definitely one of the more involved ones that I made. By using these pieces that have 3 holes for different bars to go in, I was able to layer them and make it look like the spiky shields from the game. And by alternating the size and color of the teeth that I put in there, I think it looks pretty good. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention how perfect the Goblin King shield from the Elves theme works for the Shield of the Mind's Eye. However, that shield is kind of expensive and I wasn't able to get it in time for this video, but I was able to get this 1x1 printed tile with the same symbol on it. That symbol looks almost exactly the same as the Sheikah symbol in all the different Zelda games, so it's a perfect shield to use to replicate that one from the game. And for our last few shields, I have some Guardian ones in mind. By using this translucent blue 2x3 modified tile or this printed oval shield, they look pretty reminiscent of the Guardian shields in the game. Otherwise, there's also this rounded variant that I came up with that uses similar techniques to the Gerudo shield that I made earlier. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about materials and animals. So this is a really simple build for an ancient screw because it's just 3 white studs and then a wind-up piece on top. And then you can use this big Technic piece for an ancient gear. Then I made this ancient spring, which is just some more Technic pieces put together. And then we have this ancient shaft, which is a few different Technic gears with a barrel and a bar on the inside. None of these are particularly super creative or interesting, but I had the parts for them, so I figured I might as well make them. The Deku Tree already comes with a couple different types of mushrooms, but there's a few more that we can make, such as Endura shrooms, Stamella shrooms, Zap shrooms, Silent shrooms, and also Rush shrooms. I think this one was my favorite to make just because it was a little bit different from the other mushrooms. LEGO also already has a lot of different parts that work for a lot of food in the game too, such as pumpkins, mighty bananas, different types of carrots, and apples. I even sourced some pieces to make some Hyrule herbs and some Swift Violet, both of which I think look a lot like their video game counterparts. There's also 2 ways that you could represent acorns, either with this 1x1 printed tile or this brown minifigure head with the acorn accessory hat on top. And if you want to make blue nightshade, you can use a green hot dog, this green eggshell piece, and this blue ice cream piece, which actually has the perfect shape for the nightshade. And speaking of ice cream pieces, if you use this magenta colored ice cream piece and a green flower stem piece, you can make wild berries, proving once again how useful the ice cream piece is. And of course, LEGO has been making egg pieces for a while, which makes it perfect for a bird's egg. And I also custom built this butter piece with all these 1x1s connected to each other. And then I just capped it off with a flat yellow piece on the end. I also found that these green ball pieces from the Ninjago sets work really good for a hydromelon. They're a really nice size, and they also have the right color and pattern to them just like the hydromelons in the game. You can also use a lime green minifigure head for palm fruits. And speaking of minifigure heads, they also work really well for milk in a bottle or Goron spice in a bottle. I made the Goron spice with some Lunar New Year pieces that have some gold on the inside because the Goron spice has a little bit of that golden sheen to it on the inside. I think the dragon looks better than this one here, but either way it gets the effect across. There's also 2 good ways that you can make monster extract. Either with this translucent purple minifigure head like I used with the other potions, or with this flask piece with a golden ring on top. I think they both get the point across pretty well, so whichever one you have in your collection is the one to use, I guess. By using this green vine piece with a couple of these green minifigure accessory holders, as well as an orange stud and this yellow egg, you can make a mighty thistle. But if you wanted a bit of a different look, you can also use a cone piece instead, since those are also a little bit more commonly found. And for a couple more random ones before I show you my favorite of the materials I made, I have a Moblin Fang and Hestu's very special present that he gives you. And for the last few materials, I made all the different gems that you can find in the game, such as ruby, sapphire, topaz, amber, opal, diamonds, and luminous stones. And of course, the luminous stone that I made glows in the dark just like in the games. And for our final material, I also made this star fragment out of the 1x1 convex pyramid pieces. I couldn't find any pieces that glow bright yellow, so this will have to do for now. And of course, Breath of the Wild wouldn't be complete without all the animals. So we have Eldon ostriches, different types of birds, Hylian retrievers, seagulls, foxes, goats, hawks, stall horses, and the most feared of all, cuckoos. Not to mention different types of bugs and beetles, butterflies, bright-eyed crabs and iron shell crabs, hot-footed frogs, different types of Hyrule bass and trout, and of course glowing cave fish. That pretty much does it for all of my Zelda Breath of the Wild items. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.